AEW is back at the Andrew J. Brady Music Center in Cincinnati. It was another one of these intimate venues. It's a music hall, and it has been a popular venue for them this year because they actually had a Dynamite there earlier in the year. If you remember, it was the episode where Jon Moxley, and that's his hometown, Jon Moxley defended the AEW World Championship on that show against Powerhouse Hobbs. And what a main event that was on that show. That was at the beginning of the year. And actually, WWE ran there as well. They ran an NXT show in that venue the following month. So tonight, they were back, and there was a lot going on this show. A little too much going on this show, because they realized that Forbidden Door is less than 2 weeks away. We have 10 days to go until Forbidden Door. And one of the issues that they have run into this year is the fact that the G1 Climax is currently in progress. Normally, Forbidden Door does not take place in August, but it did this year because All In got moved up a little bit. So the schedule sort of shifted a little bit. We haven't seen that many New Japan stars popping up on TV. We had one tonight, and I would guess that once the G1 wraps up, which I believe is this weekend, we may see them on the show next week. Next week is the final Dynamite before Forbidden Door. That did not stop them, though, from making a whole bunch of different announcements. But before we even get into any of that, the key angle on the show involved the AEW World Championship, Hangman Page and MJF. MJF got a win last week in the main event, if you remember, over Mark Briscoe. Mark Briscoe was not on the show tonight. We had a face-off, and we'll talk about the opening segment here. But what came out of it was Hangman goading MJF, getting under his skin and goading him into putting his contract up. Not contract up meaning he's going to use the contract that he won in the Casino Gauntlet match. Not that he's going to put the contract on the line. And he's going to get his World Championship match at Forbidden Door. But he's going to get it by cashing in the contract that he won. So they're going right to that match. It is official. We have a World Championship match now for the pay-per-view. We also had on this show the return of Will Ospreay. The same Will Ospreay who only a few weeks ago showed up on TV looking very downtrodden and down on his luck because he was given some terrible news that he had a very serious injury, 2 herniated discs in his neck. And he made a very odd statement that, bruv, I hope to be back in time for Forbidden Door. And I'm just like, what? 2 herniated discs in his neck, and he hopes to be back in a matter of weeks. And that seemed very unwise. It seemed very optimistic. Well, there he was tonight. He was there, he was physical, and they made the announcement that Will Ospreay is going to be wrestling on the Forbidden Door card. Not only is he going to be wrestling on the Forbidden Door card, but he is going to be involved in a 10-man, lights-out, steel cage match. So one of these matches that there's just going to be mass carnage and chaos and big moves, and a lot of it's going to be coming from Will Ospreay. Doesn't sound very smart to me, but I'm sure he desperately wanted to be on that show, and so he is now. I'm just trying to visualize how this is going to work. You know, when you have, this is not blood and guts, where you have 2 rings and you can spread people out. You got 10 guys that are going to be in this match in 1 ring in 1 cage. That's a lot of guys. It's a lot of bodies and not a lot of room to maneuver around. So that just sounds like a complete shit show waiting to happen here. But you look at the names in this match, and it will be Darby Allin. It will be Will Ospreay, obviously. Hiroshi Tanahashi. And we'll get into who the other members of the match are going to be, because it was quite a shock seeing them just thrown up in a graphic with no way to build them up to the moment or anything like that. 2 other really big names. If you're an AEW fan, you're looking at this going, man, these are 2 really big names that also are tossed in there on the babyface side out of nowhere. We've not seen them on television recently, but they're going to be there at Forbidden Door in a few weeks. And I'll just tell you right now, one of those names is Kenny Omega. And they threw his return out there like nothing. Just a total throwaway. Oh, by the way, Kenny Omega is going to be back in that match at Forbidden Door. Okay. All right. for a company. I mean, Tony Khan was just talking. He did an interview with Z100 here in New York, and he was just talking about all the stories that they tell. People say we're not a storytelling company, that we don't tell stories, and that's not true. And he's right. People do make comments like that, and it's not true. You may not like the stories they tell, but they do tell stories. But this is one of those examples of ain't no story to be told here as far as their inclusion in the match. It's just like, we gotta put a card together here and find a way to get these people on the show. And this is what we're coming up with. So that match is official. We have, and then really when you look at it too, like we have, oh man, I haven't even mentioned the Copeland Christian stuff. My God. Like I said, there was a lot of stuff that was thrown out there tonight to set matches up for the pay-per-view. Copeland Christian being one of them. They're back together. I didn't think tonight was going to be the night, but they're back together and they're wrestling at Forbidden Door. They're not waiting until All Out. They're not waiting for Toronto. We are getting the Adam Copeland Christian Cage reunion, the first time since 2011 that these men have teamed together. And we are getting that at Forbidden Door as well. But this is what happens again when you are in crunch time and you have a card that has to be put together and not a whole lot announced. You get all these announcements at once because look, if they waited, next week is the go-home show. And then you'd have people complaining, oh, why are you putting half the card together 4 days before the pay-per-view? So they felt like they had to make these announcements. And honestly, if you look at the cards so far for Forbidden Door, it's a very strong card on paper. I'm sure it's going to be a kick-ass show. But it was just a lot to throw at the viewer on this show tonight. So we'll go through the entire thing. This is your AEW Dynamite review. It is Wednesday, August 13th. 2025. I am the Solomonster. Thank you for hanging out with me here on another Wednesday night. Do me a favor, because we are less than 10 subscribers away from 88,000. It's possible we could hit it tonight. So if you are not subscribed to the channel, please go ahead and do so. Hit that like button as well. I don't know if we'll hit the goal tonight. Minimum 400 likes. If we don't, we don't. If we do, you know the drill. We'll be doing our Be the Booker segment later. Super chats are open as well. If you have questions, comments, you want to support the channel, get them on in. You'll see them popping up on your screen. There's King Kong Bundy. Wave hello. So get them on in right now, and I will read them a little later on. So the show kicked off with MJF striding to the ring, microphone in his hand. AEW World Championship, of course, is what he is going after. I see we have the Gold Spirit in the chat. I hate how everyone disrespects AEW unnecessarily at times. Solomonster is no exception to this. Gold Spirit, please go ahead and explain what I have done to disrespect your beloved AEW. I would love to know. I'll be patient. I'll go easy on you. I'll be patient with you. Please explain. While you do that, I'll talk about this segment. MJF comes down to the ring. Hangman Page, he comes down to the ring because they were advertised for a face-to-face on tonight's show. Now, we were also told by the announcers that if there was physicality between these two men, massive fines would be levied against them. So they could not touch. Otherwise, I guess Tony Khan would fine them and take some of that money to put towards these $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 multi-man matches that he does. See, now we know how he's funding these matches. He's just fining people. So MJF, he called Hangman the main character, right? You're the main character in AEW. If you're the main character, then I'm the main antagonist. He told Page that he knows he's at his most vulnerable when he's angry. MJF promised to make Page very, very angry. So Hangman took the bait and he started screaming and hollering like a madman. He just erupted on MJF, saying that, you keep calling me Seabiscuit, but you're a dumbass because in the movie, Seabiscuit was a winner. So he said MJF is not going to goad him into a title shot. You're going to have to earn it, or you're going to have to cash in that Casino Gauntlet contract. Now, MJF pinned Mark Briscoe last week on the show. They never said that it was a number one contenders match, but you kind of assume that, okay, whoever wins that match is probably going to be next in line to challenge for the title. Evidently not. Evidently, Hangman has the power to say, no, you don't get a shot. I dictate who gets a title shot around here. So he said the only way you're going to get a shot is earn it. He didn't explain how MJF was supposed to earn it. How do you earn it? If winning matches doesn't earn you a title shot, how exactly do you earn the right to challenge this man for the championship? He didn't explain that. Or you're going to have to cash in your contract. It's got to be one or the other. MJF said that Hangman wants to talk about moral character. And the fans say that Hangman did nothing wrong and they treat him like a god. He said, screw their god. MJF will expose Hangman as a fraud and a weak-minded, alcoholic little boy. Said that he would break the spell that Page has cast on these fans, and at Forbidden Door, he would defeat their god and crucify him. So Hangman told MJF that he talks as if he's already got the title shot. He goes, you don't, because I refuse to take this championship and give you a shot at it. Hangman pressed MJF and said that he won't because he wants him to take a shot. Take a shot. Says you won't because you want an insurance policy. You want to hold on to that contract because you know that you can't beat me. Claimed that MJF prides himself on being an AEW day one guy, and he knows that AEW is about being all in. And he goaded him into taking his shot. Called him an insecure, gutless coward. MJF is just fuming at this point. So he is just reeling this guy in. And finally, MJF, he gets so pissed off that he just shouts at Hangman. And they censored what he said, but he basically said, I'm cashing in the contract at Forbidden Door. And you could see the demeanor change on his face almost instantly when he realizes what he just did, right? He didn't come into this segment with the intent to do that, but he realized instantly what he had done. And he could back out. I mean, again, the way it works in AEW is until you sign the contract, it's not valid and you don't cash in, it doesn't work. But he just accepted the challenge. He just said, this is what I'm going to do. He can't back out now. He's going to look like a puss. So he realizes now the pickle that he has gotten himself into. And Hangman told him he would see him at Forbidden Door and called him a dumbass before leaving the ring. You know, of all the people to call their shot with their Money in the Bank contract, which is what this is, it's just a copy of Money in the Bank, MJF is not one that I would have expected to call their shot in advance. His character, I mean, it's just, he is the kind of character that you would expect would sneak in after a match is over. So the fact that they found a way to get him to call his shot in advance was kind of clever. But I like what they did here. Again, if you think about it, we had Hangman at the very beginning of the promo saying that MJF is not going to goad him, right, into a title match at Forbidden Door. I know what you're trying to do. You're trying to insult me. You're trying to piss me off. You're trying to get under my skin. So I go, okay, you're on. And he gets a championship match and still gets to hold on to the contract. So that's how the segment started, with Hangman saying, you're not going to goad me into a title match. By the time we got to the end of the segment here, he goaded MJF into using his contract to get a title match. So he completely turned the tables on him here. And so now that the match is official, and it was the match that made the most sense to do, but okay, now it's really happening. How do you do this finish? I mean, you can't just beat MJF and it's a one and done and that's it. You've got to do it in such a way that you can keep the issue alive, maybe run the match back in Toronto next month, but it's too early for Hangman to be dropping the championship. So that's going to be a very interesting finish to that main event in terms of what they do, who wins, and how they win, and how it all goes down. And can you milk it for another main event next month, which is what I would want to do. And I would even consider doing a title change on that show, But to do one at Forbidden Door, to me, I mean, I know they're in London. They're going to have a hot crowd, probably a sold-out crowd. That just doesn't make any sense to me. Now, we had Jon Moxley, the former AEW World Champion. The hometown boy tonight, one-on-one against Kevin Knight. Now, if you remember last week's show, Knight stepped in to help his tag team partner, Speedball Mike Bailey, after his match with Moxley. So that set up tonight's match. Moxley dodged a drop kick. He tried for a Texas Cloverleaf. Knight pushed him out of the ring. They battled on the elevated ramp and stage that they had at the venue. Knight dumped Moxley back to ringside, and then he attempted a flying something off the ramp. Moxley sidestepped him, and Knight went crashing into the barricade. That took us into the commercial break. Speedball tried to get involved. Marina Shafir, Wheeler Yuta, they cut him off. That allowed Moxley to have his way with Knight. Moxley pulled him back into the ring. He locked in a stretch. Later on, they both climbed to the top rope, and Moxley poked him in the eye, knocked him off the ropes. King. Thinking of Brody King here. Knight. We got Knights. We got Kings. We got the whole fucking royal court here. Knight sprang back up. He nailed the top rope superplex for a 2 count. Brody King was on this show. That was later. That's a later segment here on this show. Moxley hit a cutter out of nowhere. He went for a pile driver. Knight, though, reversed it, sent Moxley into the ropes for a powerbomb. Only got a 2 count. Moxley bailed out of the ring. Knight, though, dove over the turnbuckles and out onto Moxley. Yuta tried to get involved. Knight kicked him away. A little mule kick from the apron. Knight hit a DDT. He hit the UFO splash. Moxley, though, got the knees up. Then he got a sleeper locked in. Knight tried his best to wiggle his way out of it. He was rolling around on the mat. They had this great overhead camera shot, and he's rolling back and forth, and Moxley just won't let go. And so finally, Knight has no choice, and he taps out. So it was a good match. Moxley initially refused to release the hold. He just kept it on. And Speedball's outside going, "What are you doing?" Right? So he gets into the ring, and he pulls Moxley off of his partner. He gets attacked very quickly by Wheeler Yuta and Marina Shafir. Now we hear the music, and Darby Allin is here. And Darby Allin makes an appearance on the stage. He's got his skateboard with him. So Darby, he gets involved here, delivers a shot to Yuta with the skateboard. Marina clears the ring. Darby places Yuta inside of a body bag. So he climbed up top. He was going to do a coffin drop to him. Here comes Claudio. He comes out, intercepts Darby, pummels him. He gets Yuta out of the body bag, first of all. And then he placed Darby inside the body bag, picked him up on his shoulders, gave him an airplane spin, and then dumped him down to the mat. See, I never saw The Undertaker do that back in the day. Undertaker used to stuff his opponents inside of a body bag. And then his big move was, once they were sealed up tight in the bag, he would hit the ropes, he would come off the ropes, and jump up in the air and just stomp on them. Basically, the Seth Rollins stomp. That's what he would do. I didn't see The Undertaker picking the guy up and giving him a fucking airplane spin. Yuta returned to the ring with a chair. They took Darby out of the body bag. They wrapped the chair around his neck. Before Claudio could stomp on it, this is when a wild Will Ospreay appeared. He took out Claudio. He threw him over the barricade. Then he delivered a hidden blade to Wheeler Yuta. Then he got a microphone. And Ospreay is on the ropes. He's got the mic. He's looking out at the Death Riders in the crowd. And he tells Moxley, "You don't want to accept Darby's challenge for Forbidden Door? Fine." Instead, he proposed that the Death Riders meet him and his friends in a lights-out cage match in London at Forbidden Door. And the fans like that announcement. Moxley and the Death Riders, not so much. If we are to take Will Ospreay seriously and take what he told us on television a few weeks ago at face value, that he is really hurt and he has 2 herniated discs in his neck forgot what he said, if it was C2 and C6, whatever it was. If we are supposed to believe that, in fact, that is a legitimate injury that he has, which I believe it is, now it just seems very unwise to allow this man to not only be wrestling at Forbidden Door, but to be wrestling in a lights-out steel cage match. Now, I know him being in the ring with 9 other people will take some of the weight off of his own shoulders, so it's not like a big singles match, but it still seems like a really bad idea. And I know I assume I'm not the only one who feels this way. Evidently, Tony Khan is not concerned. He got a fine medical report, and he thinks he'll be A-okay. I mean, this man, come hell or high water, he's going to make sure he gets in that ring in London. If he has to drag his body down to the ring, he wants to be on that Forbidden Door show. Yeah, I feel bad for Eddie Kingston, because Eddie Kingston has said recently that he was really hoping to be on the Forbidden Door card because he missed it last year. And that's like a really big deal to him. And so the fact that he wasn't included in this match tells me that he has no shot at being on that show, unless he just makes an appearance. So I kind of feel bad for him because I know he really wanted to be back in time for this. But, he's going to be back in 10 days wrestling. I'm not sure what the point was in him coming out a few weeks ago and making a big deal about this big neck injury that he has. If he was just going to come back in 2 weeks, what was the point of that? Why even have him go out there and make that kind of announcement? I don't really understand that. I didn't understand it the night that he came out and made the announcement. And he said, Tony Khan gave me the floor to come out here and tell all you guys what I've been going through. I've been hiding a neck injury for 10 months. Like, why would you even admit that? But here we are. He's going to be back in 10 days. We'll see what goes on there. We'll see. I don't know. I just don't know, man. I don't know. But in the back later with Renee, Ospreay announced that he got on the phone with his former boss. He asked him to be part of this match, and he agreed. And so at Forbidden Door, it'll be Ospreay teaming with Darby Allin and the Ace, Hiroshi Tanahashi, the former IWGP champion, the current president, not only the Ace, but the president of New Japan Pro Wrestling. And 2 other partners, he said, to be determined. Actually, it was determined. It was determined later in the show. They just threw it all out there tonight. But we'll get to that. He also told Renee, hey, tell your husband that I want to have a chat with him on next week's show in Scotland. They're going to be in Glasgow next week. So I guess we're going to get some kind of a face-to-face with him and Moxley. So that's what Tanahashi's final UK match is going to be. It was announced months ago that his final match in the UK would be on this show. We just didn't know who it would be against. Because remember, like John Cena, he's in the middle of his retirement tour. Only his ends a little bit later than Cena's, because Tanahashi's not having his retirement match until the Tokyo Dome in January. So this is going to be it for him in the UK, and it's going to be a lights-out steel cage 10-man match. 5-on-5. Again, it's a good way to kind of hide Tanahashi, who he just can't go the way he used to. But man, I don't know what that's going to look like. 10 guys stuffed into one cage and one ring like that, it's going to be a lot. There's going to be a lot going on there, but we weren't done with the announcements about this match. We'll pick up with this again later. We had the TBS champion, Mercedes Mone, teaming with Thekla and Skye Blue to take on Alex Windsor, Willow Nightingale, and Queen Aminata. Thekla and Blue of the Triangle of Madness, that's what they call themselves. Thekla, Skye Blue, and Julia Hart. They're the Triangle of Madness. So they've been making life difficult in recent weeks for Willow and Aminata. Alex Windsor, obviously, is going to be part of the four-way match at Forbidden Door. Mercedes is defending the TBS title against a member of the AEW roster.
Roman Reigns gently down the stream.
She'll be defending against Roman Reigns.
Roman Reigns gently down the stream.
Roman is going to be pulling double duty. He's going to be working Forbidden Door at the O2 in London, and the next weekend he'll be working the La Défense Arena in Paris, France. at Clash in Paris. This guy, he's keeping busy, man. Then he's got to go film Street Fighter. No, Alex is going to be challenging Mercedes, like I said, for the TBS title at Forbidden Door, but she's one of 3 challengers on that show. We don't yet know who the CMLL person is going to be, and we don't yet know who the challenger from Stardom is going to be. So just to give you a sense of how this match came together, this is why these women were involved in this match. So Timeless Toni Storm, she also appeared. She was up in one of the balconies. And then Athena, who's wrestling Toni at Forbidden Door, appeared in another balcony. She had her contract with her that she's cashing in. So both people, interesting, very interesting, both people who won the Casino Gauntlet contracts this year are calling their shots in advance. Very interesting. So anyway, they were up in sort of opposing balconies watching this match. Aminata isolated Mone in her team's corner, and Windsor attacked or tagged in for some side slams. Julia Hart tried to grab Windsor from the outside, and Mone used that distraction to deliver a jawbreaker. Roman Reigns is all elite, says the Arizona Zombie. Can you imagine? I can't. Joe Anoa'i is all elite. I'll be all elite. You'll be all elite. I'll be in that lights out cage match in 10 days before Roman Reigns ever sets foot in an AEW ring. So we had just the thought of it. Just the thought of it is just ridiculous to me. You got guys who are letting their contracts expire, or they're hitting them up like 4 days before their contract expires with an offer. Roman, like, I don't know when Roman's contract expires, but you have to imagine that probably like 2 years before it expires, they'll be in full deliberations with him over a new deal. It's just interesting how they treat different people. Julia Hart, like I said, she tried to grab Windsor from the outside, and Mone used that as a distraction to hit a jawbreaker. They went to a break, and they came back. Willow flattened Thekla, and Skye Blue jumped in to get some revenge. Willow caught her with a Death Valley driver, though. Thekla, Blue, and Mone, they got stacked up in the corner to take some punishment from all 3 opponents, ending with a cannonball from Willow. Julia Hart tried to get involved again, but Thekla took advantage and hit Aminata from behind, hung her up in the ropes. Windsor locked in a sharpshooter on Mone, who escaped, tagged in Skye Blue, and then all hell broke loose at this point. And this really was a theme for a lot of the matches on the show tonight. There were multiple multi-person matches that ultimately just broke down. Everyone brawled. It left only Skye Blue and Windsor standing. Skye put the sharpshooter on, or Windsor, I should say, put the sharpshooter on Skye Blue, who was forced to tap out. So when the match was over, Athena and Toni Storm, they brawled up in the balcony area, all the way down to ringside. Meanwhile, Mercedes attacked Alex Windsor after the bell. Storm and Windsor, they fired back. They sent the heels out to the floor. Toni took the microphone and made a challenge for a tag team match on next week's show. She told Athena and Mercedes they better wear something under their kilts. Otherwise, they would bareback them all over Scotland. Yeah. That's what she said. Eddie says, the Braves are up 11-6. Yes, the Mets fucking suck. The Mets are awful. The Mets are an absolutely atrocious, awful baseball team. I want to say they were up 6-0 in this game. I was trying to keep tabs on what was going on before I went live. I believe I want to say they were up 6-0, and then I think the Braves went up 9-6 off a grand slam. Now apparently it's 11-6. So yes, the Mets are fucking terrible. The less said about them, the better. Just an absolutely embarrassing franchise. So anyway, that's your tag team match now for next week's show. As far as the women in the match here, they did a lot with what little time they had. They gave them less than 10 minutes. Much of the match took place during a commercial break, but the action was good. The tag team match next week, I think in front of that crowd in Glasgow, and you look at the talent in that match, and we have Mercedes and Athena as tag team partners for the first time, that's going to be a good match. That's a match I'm looking forward to. Then we had Adam Copeland, one-on-one with Stokely Hathaway. And the rule is that if FTR interferes in this match and they try to help out Stokely, then their order of protection that they took out, their restraining order on Adam Copeland, is declared null and void. Now, I'm no lawyer. I've watched a lot of legal dramas. I love me some Law and Order, especially the classic Law and Order and Law and Order SVU and Law and Order Criminal Intent. I've watched them all. I don't know that this is necessarily something that is what I would call legitimate. I need my lawyers to check in here and let me know, because this sounds very suspect to me. So a very reluctant Stokely Hathaway was dragged out to the ring by AEW security. He clearly wanted no part of this. Stokely tried to spear Cope right from the start. Copeland just no-sold it. He offered Stokely a free shot and then very casually stepped aside, which drew a very sarcastic "holy shit" chant from the crowd. Stokely then tried to be friends with Cope. He offered him a fist bump, and so Copeland punched him in the face. So he went outside, and they're in the crowd now, and Copeland grabs a microphone. And he asked one fan in the crowd what they thought of Stokely, and the fan said, "He's short, he's bald, and he gets no hose." Stokely, that is. It's possible the fan doesn't either, but he was referring to Stokely. So then Copeland walked over to a woman in the crowd. Yes, they do have those at these wrestling shows, believe it or not. He walked over, he found a lady in the crowd, and he asked her if Stokely actually had a shot with her. Did Stokely have a chance to sleep with her, basically? And she said, "Hell no, he doesn't." Copeland kept on walking, and he grabbed Stokely, and apparently the stand-up comedy portion of this match here was now over, and Copeland brought Stokely back to ringside with him, put him back in the ring. Copeland speared Stokely, and this is when FTR came out. So FTR comes out on the entrance ramp, and they're begging Copeland to not murder this man. They're begging him to stop. So instead, he speared Stokely again. FTR couldn't take it anymore. They ran to the ring, thus invalidating their restraining order. Copeland took out Dax. He took out Cash. Went for a third spear on Stokely, but when he did, Stokely threw powder in his face. And that was a cause for what I assume was a disqualification. FTR laid a beatdown on Copeland. They were about to spike him when Christian Cage. The last time we saw Christian was, what was it, 2 weeks ago? It wasn't last week, was it? I think it was 2 weeks ago. When Nick Wayne and Kip Sabian delivered that awful-looking concerto to him. And I just assumed you do an angle like that, and that's a way to keep Christian off the show for at least a few weeks. And that way you can kind of kill the build to Forbidden Door and then bring him back post-Forbidden Door and begin the build to a Cope and Christian reunion in time for Toronto. Silly me. No, he was back tonight. And not only was he back, but Christian came out with Spike, the wooden board with the nails in it that belongs to Adam Copeland. So he runs out to the ring with the board. He swings at FTR. They bail out to the floor. But Nick Wayne shows up with a chair. Kip Sabian showed up as well. I did see Mother Wayne. I saw it very brief. Very brief. She didn't say anything. She didn't do anything, but Mother Wayne was there as well. Christian knocked the chair out of Nick's hands because he had a chair. He had the board. The board beats the chair. So he knocked the chair out of Nick Wayne's hands. And we also had Copeland deliver a spear to Kip Sabian. And the heels backed off, leaving Christian and Copeland alone in the ring. They did the old deal where their backs are turned and they don't realize that the other guy is behind them. And they bump backs. And unlike Toni Storm earlier, she's talking about bare back. They were not bare, thank God. They had their clothing on, but or at least Christian did. But they bump and they turn around and they see each other. Right? And now, what's going to happen? What is going to happen now with Copeland and Christian? That's the question. Christian actually, the first thing he did before he went to go leave was he handed Spike to Copeland, who took the board, and then Christian went to go leave. Before he could do so, Copeland grabbed him, turned him around, and gave him a hug. And Christian did hug him back, but it was Copeland who initiated it, but we got the hug because the fans were chanting, "Hug it out." And they got the hug and everybody popped. Christian had a very conflicted, confused look on his face, like he still wasn't sold on this idea. He did not look thrilled. And this, I mean, look, this was inevitable. We knew that this was the destination. We knew the payoff was getting these two guys back together, but it just felt to me like, even though it's been teased for a while, it still felt rushed. It felt like this is something that we should have waited a few more weeks to get, even a couple more weeks, like coming out of Forbidden Door. And instead they opted to do it tonight. And we found out very quickly why that is, because they made the announcement that Adam Copeland and Christian Cage, they're back together all right. They're back together enough that Tony Khan saw fit to immediately make a tag team match for the pay-per-view. And it's going to be Cope and Christian against Nick Wayne and Kip Sabian. That is official. In 10 days, they will wrestle their first tag team match together in 14 years. That's awfully quick, the way they put that together. I will say this, though. I get the vision that Tony Khan is going for here. I get it. And it does make sense in this respect. They're clearly going to move on to Cope and Christian and FTR. Titles or no titles, that's got to be the direction. And it's coming up very, very soon. You got to wrap up this stuff first, though, with Christian and the patriarchy. Like, you can't just leave it hanging. You got to do Christian against Nick Wayne, or you got to do some sort of match to wrap up that story before Christian moves on to something completely different. That's what they're doing here. And it serves a couple of different purposes. Number one, it allows them to wrap up the Christian patriarchy story once and for all. And it also allows them to give Cope and Christian a win, heading into what I presume now is going to be a championship match at All Out. Because on the flip side of this, the finals are taking place next week, where it's going to be FTR against Brody King and Bandito. And the winners of that match are going to challenge the Hurt Syndicate, who are not on the show tonight. No Hurt Syndicate members at all tonight. But the Hurt Syndicate are defending their tag team titles against the winner of this tournament. You can make an argument for either team, but after what they did tonight, to me, there is no argument. Like, that team needs to be FTR. The team that goes on to beat the Hurt Syndicate to win the titles is going to be FTR. And the only question is, do they do some sort of a draw or a no contest next week to allow Brody King and Bandito to get a spot in a big match on the Forbidden Door card where they could make it a triple threat match for the tag team titles? And again, Hurt Syndicate can drop the belts in that situation without having to be pinned. It's a cop-out. But if there's a concern on their part that, hey, we don't want to just go in there and lose to FTR, that could be a workaround to that. But FTR should come out of Forbidden Door as the tag team champions. And Copeland and Christian challenging for those titles, that now becomes the attraction. Before, the attraction was Copeland and Christian just reuniting and having a match at all. But you've taken that away now. You're giving that to the crowd in London. You're giving it away a month earlier than I thought they would. So that alone is no longer the attraction for All Out. The attraction has to be, okay, they're back together and they're going after gold. It's been a long time since they've been tag team champions. That's the attraction now for All Out on September 20th. So they made the finals here a lot more predictable than maybe it would have been before. Predictable as it still was. This just seals the deal as far as FTR. And I already talked about all the MVP stuff and the rumors going around about him rejecting pitches for FTR to win at All In and then to win at Forbidden Door. It's not his call to make. Again, it's not his call. It's not his match. It's not his company. If Tony Khan wants the belt on FTR, that is where the belt should go. Regardless of what MVP or anybody else thinks, that is the destination. Period. End of story. Now we had the Young Bucks, Josh Alexander and Kyle Fletcher, taking on Brody King, Hologram, Tomohiro Ishii, and a mystery partner in a Tony Khan special. Oh yes, the only thing missing was the dollar amount that was up for grabs here in this match. There was no dollar amount, but it was an all-star 8-man tag team match. I've lost track of how many of these we've gotten in the last month. So a bunch of pyro shot off as someone announced over the PA that they had no music for the Young Bucks tonight. So they just came out to boos and laughs from the crowd. But they had video on the big screens, one that mentioned Slick Nick and the other one mentioned Mr. Instant Replay, which sounds like a character you would create in 2K25. But we were told that that was actually their original names when they first started wrestling on the independent scene. So the Mystery Man. Who was the Mystery Man on the babyface side? The Mystery Man was going to be the person, we were told, challenging Kyle Fletcher for the TNT Championship at Forbidden Door. It turned out to be Hiromu Takahashi from New Japan Pro Wrestling. And I like Hiromu. He's a great wrestler. Fans gave him a respectful reaction in the building tonight. It wasn't some sort of big blowaway announcement or anything like that, but finally we're getting an actual Forbidden Door aspect to this card. Because I've been talking about how the majority of the card, where is the actual Forbidden Door influence? And so now we have a New Japan talent challenging for an AEW championship. So the Bucks took out Brody King early on. They sent him to the outside. And then outside, they started bullying Justin Roberts for not giving them, I guess, the introductions that they felt they deserved. And then they delivered a double super kick to him. And they took out poor Justin Roberts. So meanwhile, Hologram flies out over the top rope. He takes out all the heels on the floor. And they go to commercial just as Doc Samson, you can see the doctor going over to check on Justin. When they came back, Tony Schiavone announced that Tony Khan had fined each of the Young Bucks $10,000 for what they had done to Justin Roberts. And he also said that he would be taking over the ring announcing for the rest of the show. And he said this is the first time, so this is something he hasn't done on TBS since 1989. It's a long time. 1989 is actually the year he left Crockett to go work for the WWF. He was only there for a year. So, I mean, he must have been doing ring announcing, I guess maybe in January of that year. I think he actually went over to the WWF in February. I enjoyed his work there. I know Vince McMahon did not. Vince McMahon thought he was too Southern. He doesn't like people who were too Southern. Somehow Jim Ross, though, stood the test of time. But, Tony said that's what he was told. I think Bruce Pritchard has said the same thing. Yeah, Vince didn't like, he had a Southern accent. He sounded fine to me. Kyle Fletcher took a shot at Hiromu, which opened him up for a shot from Brody King, who tagged in Ishii. Fletcher got the knees up after Ishii set him up for a move. The Bucks ran in. They started spamming super kicks. Alexander grabbed Takahashi and slammed him on the apron. Everyone was brawling. I'm not even going to bother recapping this because there's just no point. Fletcher got King up for a Young Buck-assisted spike pile driver on the apron. Back inside, all four heels took turns hitting big moves on Hologram. He reversed the Nick Jackson Hurricane Rana and got a hot tag to Takahashi, who stacked up Fletcher and Alexander for a lariat in the corner. He went up top, but he wasn't fast enough. He caught a Kyle Fletcher kick to the head, and the Bucks jumped in. They laid him out with kicks, and Fletcher hit a leaping tombstone, and Takahashi still kicked out at 2. Alexander tagged in. Takahashi, though, reversed his attack into a flatliner. King rejoined the match, took out Fletcher. Hologram jumped on a bunch of people. Alexander and Takahashi, they were the only ones left standing, and Hiromu planted Alexander with a time bomb and got the win for his team. Which is, it makes sense. He's challenging for the title at Forbidden Door. This was their way of giving him a win, give him some momentum here going into the pay-per-view. But again, there was just a lot of craziness here during the match, where it just was, boom, 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 and nonstop action. So there's no point in recapping every single aspect of it. All you need to know is that there was a lot of action here, and Hiromu got the win. And Hiromu ain't winning the TNT Championship at Forbidden Door. So the least we can do for this man is give him a win on this show. And that's what they did. Now, Renee was out on stage to introduce Swerve Strickland and Prince Nana, but her microphone wasn't working. So nobody heard her as she's standing there talking. So they quickly cut to the announcers who were not prepared for this. And they started to BS a little bit and talk about random nonsense just to kind of stall for time so they could get her mic working again. Taz could barely contain his laughter over this whole situation. Then they cut back to Renee, who had to do her intro all over again, but at least her mic worked this time. So she asked if Swerve would be medically cleared for Forbidden Door, and I said, medically cleared? What? When did this happen? We got Will Ospreay coming out here and talking about how he has 2 herniated discs, and now we're basically getting the same story here. And in this case, I'm not sure if this is a worked injury. Maybe it's a real injury. I don't know. But now we're getting the same story with Swerve. So Swerve said he doesn't care if he is or he isn't cleared. His only priority is the unified champion, Kazuchika Okada. Which honestly is not much of an answer. He didn't really answer the question. Okada took that as a good time to mosey on out to his new entrance music. And he had a stare down with Swerve. Okada said that Swerve has no chance thanks to his knee injury. Okada said he might as well give up now. But Swerve still questioned whose house it might be. That was just to get the crowd to start chanting, whose house over and over and over again. Okada called him a bitch. Swerve gave him a shove, and security came out to keep them apart. This sucked. This segment sucked. A complete throwaway segment. Basically, Swerve comes out, right? And the point was to tell people that he's got a bum knee. So they bring up the knee injury. Okada comes out. He calls him a bitch. They break them up. End of segment. Waste of time. That's what this segment was. This is what they came up with for these two guys to do. Just to get them on the show, I guess, right? It doesn't really get any lazier than that. But that was the brilliant idea they came up with for these two men. Swerve hurt his knee, says Big Ben. Another legitimate injury, huh? And he's going to be wrestling. Great. Well, look, whether it's legitimate or not, it gives him an out when he loses, right? If he goes in there and he loses to Okada, they'll just chalk it up to the knee injury. And the knee will obviously become a focal point of that match now. That will be the story of the match. And he'll put up a valiant effort and then fall short in the end, and they could just blame it on the knee injury. But whether it's a swerve or whether it's legit, I guess that was what they wanted to bring up here. I just thought the segment itself, though, and Okada just coming out and saying, just to get him to say bitch. I mean, it's just such a lazy fallback line. Yeah, it's kind of funny sometimes, but I don't know. When this segment was over, I said, what was the point of even doing this? You could have had a video package where Swerve talked about his knee. It would have been even more effective than what we had here. Backstage, Alicia Atute grabbed Jon Moxley and the Death Riders as they were walking and asked if he had chosen his teammates for Forbidden Door against Will Ospreay, Darby, and Tanahashi. And by the way, this literally just happened a few segments earlier. The challenge was just issued on this very show. And this man is being hunted down backstage. Have you come up with partners for your match yet? Why don't you give him a little bit of time to come up with it? No, but they have to rush everything. We got to make the announcements now because we have the pay-per-view in 10 days. We can't wait. We can't let this breathe until next week. We got to get it all out there now. So of course, he didn't have all of his partners lined up yet, but he heard Tanahashi. He didn't know about Tanahashi. And he made her repeat Tanahashi's name like 4 or 5 times. Like, you mean the Tanahashi, the ace Tanahashi, that Tanahashi? And she said, yeah. And he was like, shit. So then he walked into the extras locker room where Marina Shafir kicked all the jobbers out before the camera panned over to show the Young Bucks sitting there after their match from earlier. Yes, the Young Bucks have been relegated to the extras locker room. This bit will never not be amusing. I hope they continue on with this indefinitely. So Moxley shut the door behind them as the segment ended. And the main event on this show was a trios match with the Ops finally back at full strength. And I should mention that earlier in the show, as they were going into a commercial break, I thought it was a commercial at first. It was a shot of the city, like the city sky. You see the buildings and everything, and then there's like a spotlight, and it has an H, like send for Hook. And that's all it was. This just played for like 15 seconds, and then they went to commercial. So we're getting little vignettes now for the return of Hook. How he's going to factor into things with the Ops, we don't know. But Hook aside, the Ops now, the Trios champions, are back at full strength. We had Samoa Joe back. He was teaming with Powerhouse Hobbs and Katsuyori Shibata to take on La Facción Ingobernable, Rush, Dralistico, and the Beast Mortos. I did not know before today that Samoa Joe fractured his ankle while he was filming season 2 of Twisted Metal for Peacock. And I think season 2 is about to premiere. So it must have been months ago. I don't know when filming for season 2 ended, but apparently he fractured his ankle. He taped it up and he limped around for the rest of the season, and he continued filming. Because when you're a wrestler, that's what you do. So I don't know what the point was of doing the injury angle with him at All in Texas the way they did, because we haven't seen him since then. I don't know if he suffered another injury. I don't know if there was some lingering issues with his ankle, because up until All In, he was wrestling pretty regularly. I mean, he was around. So the ankle fracture must have happened many months ago, but I did not know that. Apparently, like, for all the stunts and shit that they were doing on the show, the way it happened was, I think he got out of a car and he planted his foot, or he took a step, and it was like uneven terrain, and just the way he turned his ankle, he just like that fractured it. Wasn't any kind of big stunt or bump he took or anything like that. But it's good to have Joe back. Tech Nation says season 2 has been out for a few weeks. Oh, it's already out. Okay. So then they must have finished filming beginning of the year, would be my guess. Is that show any good? I didn't watch season 1. I never really played the Twisted Metal games. So I don't really know from any of the characters. So I didn't watch the first season. It kind of annoys me that Joe is in the show and they don't use his voice. It's just very weird. I know they wanted like a name actor to use his voice. I forgot the name of the actor, but Joe is the one who is actually like, he's playing the character. He's got the mask on, his mannerisms and everything. And apparently he's really good in doing whatever it is that he does in the show. But I don't know. That just kind of annoys me. Like, Samoa Joe's got a great voice. Like, I feel like he's like low key. He's got a great voice to do voiceover work or like cartoon character work. If you wanted to do something like an animated series or a fucking anime or something, and they don't even use the guy's voice. Like, what a waste. But anyway, so here in this match, Rush was taunting Joe, picking up with this like midway through. Rush was taunting Joe, trying to drag him into the match, but Joe was cut off by the referee while Rush had Shibata in a chin lock. Eventually, he got the hot tag to Hobbs, who took out the Beast Mortos and Dralistico, stacking them up in the corner and hitting a big spine buster on Mortos. Yeah, Will Arnett, that's who it was, yes. Yeah, they use Will Arnett's voice for the Sweet Tooth character. But Joe is the one that you actually see on the show. Oh, Joe uses his voice in season 2? He does, huh? Interesting. What is it, like just one scene? Is it the entire season? Or is it just like one scene where he gets to use his actual voice? Roosh broke up the pin attempt after Hobbs hit that spine buster on Mortos. Joe tagged in to take on Dralistico, who tried a springboard, but he got caught in the Coquina clutch. Hobbs kept the other team members at bay, and Dralistico was forced to tap out. That was it. That was the main event. This did not feel like a Dynamite main event. It was very odd. I was waiting for there to be some kind of big angle, and then there was nothing. And the babyfaces won. It was like 7 or 8 minutes. They got an overrun. And then they went around ringside, and they just were celebrating. And they headed to the back, and I'm watching this going, this can't be how the show ends. This might be how, like, Collision ends. But 10 days before the pay-per-view, the Ops doesn't even have a fucking match on the show. What the hell are they doing in the main event? It's got to be something more here. And then, sure enough, they cut to the back, where we see Hangman leaving through the parking garage, when Renee cuts him off and asks about the title match at Forbidden Door. Before he could speak, before he can answer her question, he gets ambushed by MJF, who slams him into the hood of a car nearby, and he's throwing repeated punches at him on the ground. He tells Hangman to remember what you said about breaking me? Or maybe it was MJF who said he was going to break Hangman. I don't know. It goes back to what they were saying in the opening segment, but he goes, "You ain't seen nothing yet." And the show actually ended with a shot of the world champion laid out on the ground backstage. So there was a lot going on here on the show tonight because there is a time crunch right now, right? I mean, it's nut up time with this Forbidden Door card and trying to flesh out all the key matches. So MJF and Hangman is official. We have our AEW World Championship match for the pay-per-view. Cope and Christian reunited a lot earlier than I thought they would be. They're wrestling on the fucking pay-per-view, which I was not expecting that to happen this quickly. But like I said, it does make sense to at least wrap up the patriarchy angle of all this before moving on to FTR or whatever comes next. The Will Ospreay announcement also kind of came out of left field, even though he said he was going to try to be back on that show. So that's going to be a big match. And so the other members of the match that were announced that I didn't mention, it's going to be Will Ospreay, Darby Allin, Hiroshi Tanahashi, Kenny Omega, and Kota Ibushi, taking on the Death Riders and the Young Bucks in a lights-out 10-man steel cage match. So this is how Kenny Omega, who has not wrestled since he lost to Okada in Texas, and we haven't seen Ibushi had to be in the Gauntlet match. Well, I think he was. Well, we haven't seen him since then. All of a sudden, we get the Golden Lovers are being reunited, which really wasn't even focused on here. It's been a while since we've seen the two of them as a team. And their big return together, and Kenny Omega's big return is just a throwaway graphic on the screen. Okay, we know all the participants now in this match. You know, you had Will Ospreay on the show tonight. When he first threw this challenge out, he said that it's going to be me and my friends. And I'm going to have to make some phone calls and whatever. And it's like, before the show's even over, they're already announcing all the members of the match. There's no drama. There's no nothing. So that aspect of it was just very thrown together. There ain't much of a story there as far as the addition of those guys to this match. I mean, honestly. But that's a big match, right? There's a lot of names in that match. A lot of name talent there. We know that Hiromu is going to be challenging Kyle Fletcher for the TNT Championship. This Saturday, they announced this previously, but this Saturday on Collision, there is a 4-way match to decide who challenges Zack Sabre Jr. for the IWGP World title. It will be Nigel McGuinness, Hechicero, Daniel Garcia, and Lee Moriarty. I wonder who it'll be wrestling Zack Sabre for the IWGP title. I don't know. I can't figure it out, guys. I'm going to have to leave it to you. It's going to be Lee Moriarty, isn't it? Yeah. I have a feeling about that guy. So anyway, we'll get Zack Sabre Jr. against Nigel McGuinness on that show for the IWGP title. And next week is the finals of the tag team tournament. FTR against Brody King and Bandito. The winners will challenge the Hurt Syndicate for the AEW tag team titles. And Mercedes on next week's show is tagging with Athena to take on Timeless Tony Storm and Alex Windsor. I love that name. Alex Windsor. There you go. And that should be a fun show next week. I have a feeling, I don't know how many tickets they have sold. I haven't checked, but it has to be their first time doing TV in Scotland. I think that crowd's going to be all amped up for that show. Forbidden Door, I mean, anytime they go to London, whether it's Wembley or a smaller venue like this, the crowds there are fantastic, and they have a lot of AEW fans over there. You know, they've sold over 15,000 tickets for this show already. So we're heading into a period now. I know not everybody is into the Forbidden Door stuff. There are people who just like check out of AEW programming around this time because they just don't like the concept, or they don't follow these other promotions, so they don't really care. Some of the stories in AEW maybe have to go on hold while they do all this other stuff. But we're heading into this period now where they're doing TV and they're doing Forbidden Door internationally. Those shows should be fun. It's going to look a lot different and sound a lot different than some of these really small venues that they've been running. So I'm hoping we get a couple weeks of fun TV out of it. But man, they did a rush job on some things tonight. That they did. We do a rush job here on this poll. How would you grade Dynamite from Cincinnati? A, B, C, or D? Let's check out the report card here. 21.6% give this show an A. 22.8% give this show a B. 21.7% give this show a C. And the winner, with 33, almost 34% of the vote, give this show a D. Why does that say from Cincinnati CV? What the fuck? I didn't even realize I misspelled that. Where'd the CV come from? I give the spelling in this tweet a D. At Solomonster. So you can go to vote. Now take a look at this. I was playing around with this, and I got my old view back here for the Super Chats. Very excited about this. Don't tell them. They told me that it wasn't possible. Oh yeah? Fuck you. You can always find a way. But we got to start with the early Super Chats first. So that's what we're going to do. And get them on in before we get out of here. We are currently sitting, by the way, at 325 likes. So that just ain't going to cut it for Be the Booker tonight, unfortunately. Well, let's go through your messages here, and we'll start with our good friend, Terrible Dried Chicken. Without flavor. Cincinnati Cardinal Violence. Oh, Carnival Violence. That's the best you can come up with? Carnival Violence. He says he hates to say this, but WWE is taking this counter-programming against AEW too far. John Cena's last match could potentially go head-to-head against AEW World's End. Yeah, I'm still thinking that the Saturday night's main event show in December will be on the 13th, not the 27th. We'll see. But yeah, it's possible if they run the 27th, that's the same night as World's End. John Cena's final match, he says, deserves a standalone show. They should have gone with my idea that I proposed the very beginning of the year. But what the hell do I know? He says, I'll tell you who can comfort Stokely Hathaway tonight. Who? I have no idea. I'll tell you how Drew McIntyre can get more heat on himself. Here's the pitch. Drew attacks Cody backstage and steals the Rolex watch. We already saw Drew stealing a bracelet. I have no interest in seeing him steal a Rolex watch. James Gunn should cast Harley Cameron as Harley Quinn in the DC universe. I'd be okay with that. I think Harley could have a career for herself doing certain type. I was gonna say she could have a career doing certain types of movies. I mean, legitimate movies. Didn't come out the way that I wanted it to, but she's very talented. Joseph Brooks says, do you think that just like Matt Hardy did what was unexpected by, I don't know what that word is supposed to be, overtaking maybe? Jeff Hardy in popularity in a way Christian has done the same with Edge. Oh, you mean like how Matt Hardy with the broken stuff at one point was, yeah. Yeah, I mean, Christian is off the peak. From like when he reached his peak as a heel in AEW, we're not there anymore. He hasn't really had that same level of momentum that his character had for a while now. Joseph says, cherish, keep, borrow, and sell. Let me just see if we are... No, we're not caught up yet. Cherish, keep, borrow, sell on the best number 2 promotions that came after the death of WCW. AEW, TNA, Lucha Underground, Ring of Honor. I mean, you gotta go... I gotta go AEW. For me, it's Lucha Underground. Honestly. Then Ring of Honor, then TNA. Ryan Hood says, good God, Mother Wayne. You know, there's a Mother Wayne super chat. You didn't trigger it. It makes me very sad. Joseph Brooks, buy or sell on which promotional partners / ownerships have done the best using the luchadors? WWE and AAA or AEW and CMLL? I mean, AEW and CMLL. We got Zach Black with a $20 super chat for, at the very least, a company that not actively employs the rapist. All of them. As a man married, she doesn't even want to watch her own show, her old show. How dare they just get this? I have no idea what this is supposed to mean. Is this a riddle? I have no idea what's going on here. Zachary, you're going to have to help me out, brother. I appreciate the love, but I have no idea what you're trying to say here. Joseph Stewart, again, it's not moving in the chat box because these are the early ones. To Dr. Scorpio. We'll catch up with these in a second. Don't worry. Joseph says, were you a fan of Seal Kiss from a Rose from Batman Forever? And did you own the Batman Forever soundtrack? I did not own the Batman Forever soundtrack. But I like the song. It was very popular on the radio at one point, and I was singing along, you know. Also, who is your favorite character from Batman Forever? I don't know who was in Batman Forever. I get them all mixed up. Batman Forever, was that the one with the Riddler? Jim Carrey, was that Batman Forever? I'll go with him. I can't keep track of all these movies. There's so many fucking movies. So many Batman movies with different Batmans in every single one of them. I don't fucking know. If you owned a wrestling company, would Psycho Sid Vicious and Raven be your top 2 stars that you would build your wrestling company around? That's very oddly specific. Sid would be the guy, sure. Raven, no. Sid, possibly, yes. What an odd combination, though. Also, do you know of... Oh, boy, he's got a bunch of them. Holy shit. Look at Joseph, man. He is... just on a tear tonight. Man, do you remember when Vampiro shaved all of Raven's hair off in TNA? I don't. Also, do you know why Stone Cold Steve Austin was dressed up as Hulk Hogan cutting a promo in ECW? Yeah, because Hogan didn't want to work with him in WCW. All those ECW promos were just him venting all of his frustrations from his WCW run. Hogan didn't want to work with him. He didn't see him as a main event. Oh, gosh.
Got it going on. She's all I want, and I've waited for so long. Nick Wayne, can't you see? Go away and leave me be. I hope she likes this song, cause I'm in love with Nick Wayne's mom.
Nick Wayne's mom has got it going on. Nick Wayne's mom has gotta love this song. There we go. All right. Yes. Yes. Eminem coming in with the Nick Wayne's mom super chat, which was all deformed there at the very beginning, but we were able to fix it. I don't know why that happens. Usually it's on the super chat screen usually. Very strange. Anyway, we'll come back to this. Thank you, Eminem. I'll get to your message here in a second. Oh, man. But back to Joseph here. If they had made a movie about Hulk Hogan, do you think Stone Cold would have made a great Hulk Hogan in the movie? No, I don't. Can you tell by his promos in ECW that Stone Cold was hurt and angry about his firing from WCW? He was. He was very upset, and that was... Again, all those promos were him, Paul Heyman saying, hey, go out there and just speak your mind. It'll make for great TV. So he didn't have Austin for very long, but he just made the most of him for the time he had. And that was Austin just trying to be creative and voice some very real anger and frustration that he had over what happened there. Terrible dry chicken without flavor with a $12 super chat. Buy or sell for a slap in pro wrestling that looks very personal. Nunzio slapping Brock Lesnar in the back of the head in 2003. Or Travis Scott busting Cody Rhodes in the eardrum in 2025. I don't remember the Nunzio one. Travis Scott was just not trained, not smartened up, and just fucking slapped the shit out of Cody and ruptured his eardrum, which was completely reckless and unnecessary for him to do. So I'll go with the Travis Scott one, kind of by default here. Joseph says buy or sell Don West or Joey Styles. Don West. If WCW was still around today, do you think Dominic Mysterio would be in WCW instead of WWE? It's impossible to know. I'm going to say no. He would be in WWE. That's where his father would want him, and that is where his father would be, and that is where he would be. Also, did you play any ECW video games? I think they only had the one, right? From Acclaim? And no, I didn't play it. There we go. See, now we're caught up. Look at that. If Raven was still in WCW when Vince Russo joined, do you think Raven would have become WCW champion under Vince Russo? I can tell you're a very big Raven fan. I don't know. I don't know what Russo's opinion was of Raven. Yeah, I don't know. I'm going to say no on that. Ed Swoggle with 31 months of channel membership. A Sound Off Gamer idea. Take the best Be the Booker matches that you can possibly do in 2K25. Do CPU versus CPU and commentate over them. Better than doing the Tavish BS. Don't remind me of Tavish. That's a potential idea. That could be something. What about Mill? What about Mill? What about Raven? Jack Ching Bada Bing. Joseph Stewart, buy or sell? Hollywood Hogan or Mr. McMahon? I'll assume you're talking top heels of all time and not upstanding citizens. Top heel of all time is Mr. McMahon. Dry Chicken says, brother, bro, brother, oos, bruv. Bro. Wrestling is a brotherhood. It is a very brotherly fraternity in pro wrestling. When Zilla called me oos, the last time when I saw Zilla at the last HOG show, and he was on a rampage after losing to Bully, and he called me oos, I felt like I was officially inducted into the... I'm now part of the family tree now. I don't know where I fit in the family tree, but I am officially an oos. I'm honored. Dr. Scorpio says, I honestly thought Tanahashi already retired. I didn't know he was still wrestling. Dr. Scorpio is out to lunch, apparently. He's been wrestling his last match here, his last match there. Last match in the US, I think, was back in April. He's been doing it all year. Come on, man. Where have you been? Joseph Stewart, in your opinion, do you think Hulk Hogan is the greatest babyface or heel of all time, or is Stone Cold the greatest babyface of all time? I don't know who the greatest babyface of all time is, honestly. I just told you who the greatest heel of all time is. So I've already answered that one. Hogan, to me, and I didn't realize it as a kid, but it became more obvious to me as the years went on, that Hogan was always a heel, but he was masquerading as a babyface. Because even when he was a top babyface, he was doing heel stuff all the time. All the eye rakes and the back scratching and...
Nick Wayne's mom has got it going on.
Oh, hell yeah, man.
It's all I want, and I've waited for so long.
Hell yeah.
Nick Wayne, can't you see? Go away and leave me be. I hope she likes this song, cause I'm in love with Nick Wayne's mom.
Nick Wayne's mom has got it going on. Nick Wayne's mom has gotta love this song. Holy shit, we got an encore. You know, the only thing better than one Mother Wayne is two Mother Waynes. That comes from our boy Eminem. Thank you, brother. Thank you, brother. I appreciate it. Yeah, I don't know who the greatest babyface of all time is. I don't think... It's not Hulk Hogan. I know it's not Hulk Hogan. Stone Cold is in the running. It's so weird because Stone Cold never actually did anything to be a babyface. Like, how do you define the greatest babyface? What does that mean? Do they have to act like a babyface? Where they don't take a shortcut, they don't cheat, right? They're very honorable, do things the right way. Or is it just based on whoever gets the loudest reactions from the crowd? I don't even know what that means. I don't know what the criteria is for that. There have been a lot of great baby faces. Ricky Steamboat. Ricky Steamboat is one of the few top, maybe the only top name I could think of off the top of my head who was never a heel. How many people would really fall into that category? At one point, he wanted to go heel. He was such a great babyface that Pat Patterson said, they'll never buy into it. You can't go heel. It's not possible. You're too good of a babyface. What about Steamboat? There you go. See, no one mentioned Ricky Steamboat. You can't ignore it. You can't ignore it. Joseph Stewart says, have you seen the movie Small Soldiers? No, I have not. Terrible Dried Chicken. Imagine MJF misses his flight on purpose for Forbidden Door. He just no-shows. Have to send Tanahashi back out there. We need you. We need you, Tanahashi. One more match. Terrible Dried Chicken says, it's the good son scenario. Save one and let the other one go. Mother Wayne or Ash by Elegance. Goodbye, Ash. It was nice knowing you. Steven. Did you hear about the guy who dipped balls in glitter? Pretty nuts. That's something you did, didn't you? It's okay, you can admit it. This sounds like something Steven may have tried. Brandon Proctor. With the 21. Congrats on 88K. Did we hit 88? We were only a few away. But I have not checked since I went live. Yes, we did. Very cool. Thank you for the update. 88,000 subscribers. Now, on to 89. It says, here's to 89K, and the journey to 100 continues. Either Ospreay is actually hurt and Tony Khan is going to let him wrestle, or it's a bait and switch, which Tony Khan doesn't normally do. Ospreay, it's not an angle. Ospreay is hurt. Ospreay is hurt. It is as serious as he said it was. That is not a work. That is not a swerve. That is not an angle. I don't know about the swerve injury, but no, Ospreay is hurt. And they are allowing him to wrestle. Joseph says, have you seen the Inspector Gadget movie with Matthew Broderick as Inspector Gadget? No. I was a big fan of the cartoon when I was younger. So, big Inspector Gadget guy. Loved the theme song for the show. Had all the toys. Never saw the movie. Also, have you seen the movie Cruel Intentions with Sarah Michelle Gellar and Ryan Philippe and Reese Witherspoon and Selma Blair? Yes, I did. I also saw Wild Thing. Wild Thing? Or Wild Things? With Nev Campbell and Denise Richards. You know, we were talking about movie soundtracks before. The soundtrack to that movie is a vibe. I like that soundtrack. Dry Chicken says, in an alternate universe, The Rock, instead of talking about Mama Rhodes, he got his eyes on Mama Wayne. Well, I don't think that Mother Wayne would be able to resist the final boss. The Hurt Syndicate should invade New Japan for gold. Well, they're going to lose their titles at Forbidden Door. So then I guess after that, if they want to, they can go after the IWGP Tag Team titles. Emperor Comet, 6th century BCE king, created the earliest known breakup letter. In short, he wasn't happy about this lady visiting his friend a lot. The lady had till the end of the month pick up her stuff. Okay. Thank you, Emperor Comet. 6th century BCE. Joseph Stewart. Says, what is your favorite scene in Batman Forever? Oh my god. Again, I let me see which one this was. It's the one I'm thinking of. With Mr. Freeze. Yeah, I think it was. Yeah. Was Schwarzenegger as Mr. Freeze in that movie with Jim Carrey? I don't have a favorite scene from that movie. It's definitely not my favorite Batman movie. Emperor Comet, I'll hold the L. I went to articles to fact check my previous comment, but a friend of mine said it wasn't true. My apologies. So it's just like a random factoid. That's what happens sometimes. It's the internet. All good. Mactub. Do you think Austin would have continued to draw as a megastar level, at a megastar level, like Rock, if not for the neck injury? And who would you like to see him feud with in the Attitude Era? Well, he's from the Attitude Era. He says Ruthless Aggression Era. I think Austin and Randy Orton would have been. But see, Randy Orton when he was a little more seasoned. Not 2002 Randy Orton, but like 2004. You know, Orton worked that match with Mick Foley. That was huge for his career. I think him working with Austin would have helped elevate his game. So, you know, Austin and Randy Orton, Austin and Brock Lesnar. Man. I would have loved to see more matches with Austin and Kurt Angle, obviously. Kurt was a machine. Like 2002, 2003 Kurt, very different than 2001 Kurt, which is when Austin worked with him. So all of those matches are matches I would have loved to have seen. As far as would he have continued to draw as a megastar, the heel turn hurt him in 2001. You know, when he came back in 2002, he was still very popular, but it was not like he was off the peak. He was not going to be at the level that he was previously. He still would have been the top babyface in the company right next to Rock. Rock went on to do movies, and so that's why Rock came off as this big megastar. I didn't see Austin going on to do movies like Rock. Austin was doing these like B and C level movies. And I'm not knocking him because I saw some of those movies. I enjoyed some of those movies. But you say megastar. Rock was a megastar because he started branching out into Hollywood. That's not anything Austin would have been doing. But there was definitely value in keeping Austin around. Had he been able to stay healthy, he would have been able to work with all those guys. Same thing with Brett. If Brett didn't get hurt, if Brett didn't have the stroke, Brett would have been back in WWE a lot sooner than he was. And Brett would have been in there working with Kurt Angle and Brock Lesnar and Eddie Guerrero and Chris Jericho and Randy Orton and John Cena and Shawn Michaels. They would have had another WrestleMania match. We were deprived of all of these matches that Brett still, you know, would have been able to have. Yeah, he was older, but if he was healthy, think of all the matches that we got screwed out of. But I think Rock would have, you know, as those years went on, 02, 03, it's tough. Rock wasn't full-time. It just depends on if Austin was full-time or not. I think Rock's status, his star status, would have outshined Austin. So he would have been a bigger star than him. Rank the following WrestleMania main events. 3, 17, and 40. I mean, in terms of like personal enjoyment, I would go 40, 17, and 3 in terms of my own personal enjoyment. Obviously, not anybody else's personal enjoyment because I don't give a shit. Give a shit about my personal enjoyment. Terrible Dried Chicken. Mother Wayne will comfort Chocolate Stokely tonight. Ew. Joseph. Joseph is a beast tonight. I don't know what's gotten into Joseph, but I love it. Do you remember Seal's Kiss from a Rose music video with Seal singing in front of the bat signal and Batman Forever scene showed in the music? I do remember this. I gotta say, man, you are a huge fan of Batman Forever. I think like half a dozen different super chats from you tonight have been about Batman Forever. I could tell that it's your favorite movie. That is not my favorite song. Thank you, Eminem. But I could tell, I know exactly what your favorite movie is. I do remember the music video. I do. You know, I mentioned the other night, was it last week maybe? We had that whole music discussion. And I mentioned Iris by the Goo Goo Dolls. I'm almost positive that there was a music video, maybe it was for the song, but from that movie, City of Angels? Was it City of Angels with Meg Ryan? I don't know if it was the official music video for the song or something connected to the movie specifically, but I remember I always associate that song with that movie. Eminem, did someone say Nick Wayne's mom? Based on tonight's show, I think Tony Khan might need that head writer back, or at least get someone that has more knowledge than him. Ronald McDonald can run a better show than Tony Khan. Well, what was your overarching issue with the show? You didn't say what the issue was with the show. Drew McIncock with 30 months of membership. Buy or sell, Demeter Bullion or the guy who sent the Bukkake, forgot his name, the Bukkake ghost. That's Abusika. Of course, I'm going to go with even though he hasn't popped up recently, I got to show love for our boy Abusika, of course. Demeter Bullion is on the other channel. Eminem, encore. Now that Killer Cross and Scarlett are free agents, could we see them at HOG? If Scarlett starts back up her OnlyFans, then there's a chance WWE did not want to re-sign them. All I'll say is stay tuned. You never know what conversations are taking place. I'm not really at liberty to discuss. Would love to get them in. We'll see. Joseph Stewart. Did you know if Tim Burton had directed... Oh my God. Did you know if Tim Burton had directed Batman Forever, Michael Keaton would have played Batman, Billy D. Williams would have played Two-Face, and Robin Williams would have played the Riddler. Robin Williams as the Riddler sounds awesome. Well, now I wish Tim Burton had directed Batman Forever. I think Joseph has the deluxe edition of the DVD. All the bonus features. Arabian Night, great cross interview with Ariel. It's not a work. AEW warts and all is the best landing spot for him, in my opinion, just in terms of money and overall TV exposure. I disagree. I don't think he would be a good fit for AEW. I mean, look, if they're interested in him and he wants to go there, I hope it works out. But in terms of like Tony Khan actually booking Killer Cross, I don't see it. I don't see it. Dr. Scorpio, barely been watching or listening about any wrestling at all the past year or so. So I did not know. My bad. Well, you got to pay more attention to these streams. You don't have to watch. I watch so you don't have to. You got to keep up with the streams, man. And of course, the main podcast. Terrible Dry Chicken, Will Ospreay pulling a Cody Rhodes during this lights out steel cage match. Yeah, I mean, he's going to do something insane. He's going to do something very, very stupid. And no one is going to stop him. That's the problem. Duff's Vids went to a costume party dressed as a screwdriver. Turned a few heads. Screwdriver, you get it? You turn, yeah, whatever. Thank you, Duffs. That was a good one. Turned a few heads. Brandon Proctor by Bait and Switch. I mean him wrestling. Now you're going to make me go back and remind myself what was said in the original Super Chats so I know what you're talking about. I see. Ospreay. Yeah, it's not a bait and switch. That is something that Tony Khan does not do. He does not bait and switch. When he announces a match, unless somebody gets hurt and he has to cancel the match or there's travel problems or something, like he doesn't bait and switch the audience. So if he says Will Ospreay is wrestling at Forbidden Door, it's not a swerve, it's not an angle. You know, they may do something to like try to limit what he does in the match, but is he really going to limit himself to what he's going to do in this match? Of course not. He's going to do something very stupid and probably hurt himself even worse. Joseph Stewart, Batman and Robin was with Arnold Schwarzenegger as Mr. Freeze and Uma Thurman as Poison Ivy. Okay, so that was the one I was thinking of. Eminem with the 25 says Bryan Danielson's wife against Nick Wayne's mom. My bookie should book this fight. With rumors of Naomi possibly pregnant, does Vacant get the Women's World Championship, and do we see a multi-women's match at Clash in Paris? Let's wait until tomorrow and see what the situation is instead of spreading rumors about whether she is or isn't. If not, Io Sky against Stephanie Vicaire is just right there. It's right there. You don't need to do anything else. Right there. You don't need some multi-person fucking gauntlet fucking, overbooked match. It's as simple could be. But Naomi and Jimmy Uso recorded a podcast interview with Stephanie McMahon that is dropping tomorrow. So I suspect we will know more about this tomorrow. Gizgoo says, damn, did Jimmy get jealous of Naomi? Maybe that's what happened. Jimmy's like, man, she's more over than I am. I'll fix this. They don't call me Big Jim for nothing. Duff's Vids, why was the mermaid good at math? She had an algae bra. An algae bra.
You suck.
Last part always gets me. Also, why did the Mexican push his wife off the cliff? To kill her. Tequila. I like that. It's always the simple, stupid ones that make me laugh. Tequila. Terrible Dried Chicken. This year, Batman Forever turned 30 years old. And also rest in peace to Val Kilmer as Batman. Yeah, he wasn't a bad Batman. Mactub. What did Triple H lack to be the guy like Cena and Roman? He's boring. There's nothing interesting about him. His promos were boring. He's a fine wrestler, but there are guys that have it. You cannot define what it is. You either have it or you do not have it. He did not have it in the same way that The Rock had it. He did not have it in the same way that Hogan had it. He didn't have charisma the way that Hogan and Rock had. Charisma is a very big part of it. Triple H had charisma in his own way. There's different forms of charisma. But I always said, for years, I've always said, he was the guy who worked with the guy. Even when they positioned him on top as the guy, he was the guy who worked with the guy. And that's not a bad spot to be in. Not everybody can be, a number one. Not everybody can be the guy. Whatever it is that they had, he didn't have. No matter how hard WWE tries to convince you that he had it, he did not. Joseph Stewart, did you know is it Bigley or Begley? It was Begley Jr. was in Batman Forever. He played the Riddler's boss. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I did know that he was in that movie. I mean, I saw the movie. I don't remember who was in some of these minor roles in the movie. But yeah, that's right. He was he a scientist or something, like at the beginning? He's not the one that Jim Carrey rolled out the window of the skyscraper, is he? Dr. Scorpio was going to make another clock pun, but I didn't want to waste your time. Sorry, I hate to nitpick, but you spelled it W-A-I-S-T. It's W-A-S-T-E. I'm just saying. Joseph with a 5. Let's see here. We have Frost better off without WWE. At least promo-wise. If he goes back, he's going to be jobbed into oblivion if not. Sorry if this was covered already. Yeah, but he wants to go back to WWE. He didn't want to leave. Like, he wants to go back. He's holding out hope that they'll be able to have a conversation and he'll go back and Scarlett will go back. So, I mean, that's what he wants. Do I see things being different for him if he goes back? No. Because again, if Triple H was interested in doing something more with him, then he would have. I mean, look at R-Truth. He was fired. They weren't going to use him anymore. They brought him back. And what has he done since he came back, right? I mean, he's pretty much right back to where he was. It's not going to be any different with Cross. And if he's okay with that, then hey, if he's happy being in WWE and that's where he wants to be, then good for him. But if he was to suddenly get an offer and he took it and he went back, I mean, anybody who thinks he's going to be in a really different position than the one he was in before, you're fooling yourself. Boots. Who would win in a TLC match between George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, and John Adams? I'll hang up and listen. And that John Adams, he's a nasty piece of business. I've heard stories about that guy. I'm gonna go with John Adams. Duff's Vids, I'd like to give a shout out to all the sidewalks out there for keeping off the streets. That's the one you end with, Duffs? Come on, man. Come on, man. You could do better than that. Well, we are currently at 409, so we did hit the Be the Booker goal, so give yourselves a round of applause. We get to do one round tonight. One round for everyone in the bar. Let's do it, and let's see what happens.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is now time to Be the Booker.
Let's see what happens. Let's see how things go. All right. Let's get things started out on the right foot with these two men right here. The Rock and Roll Express, Ricky Morton, Robert Gibson. One of the all-time great tag teams right here. Talk about super over. These guys were super over. And it will be the Rock and Roll Express taking on Sting and Darby Allin. Look at this, father and son. It's just, every time I see this image, I just laugh. Sting and Darby against the Rock and Roll Express. Some good wrestling right there. All right, ladies' time. We have jazz. Who likes some jazz? I like some jazz myself. And I like this even better. Jazz against Chris Statlander. That sounds good to me. That sounds damn good to me. Let's keep this ball rolling. We're going in the right direction here. This is going to end really well. I can feel it. In our main event, we have the AAA Mega Champion, El Hijo del Vikingo, who's going to be defending his title this Saturday at Triple Mania, in fact, against all WWE stars. He's the only AAA talent in the match. But before he gets to Triple Mania, Vikingo is in the main event here and be the booker. I just hope he doesn't get hurt. He's going to hurt his knee tonight, isn't he? He's going to be out of Triple Mania. Let's hope not. Vikingo against Demon Balor. That's a clean sweep right there. Demon Balor, look at him before he got killed off by Roman Reigns. Demon Balor and Vikingo. How about that? Not bad. Not bad. Hell fucking yes, says GTA. How's this for a random trivia fact for you? It's kind of crazy for me to think that I actually had to make the save. I had to make the save on a Hog show once for Vikingo. Believe it or not, yeah. How's that for wacky? Vikingo's okay in my book. Yes, Balor is also on the AAA show. He is not in that main event, though, but he is teaming with the other members of the Judgment Day to take on... Who are they taking on? Is it Psycho Clown, Mystery Iguana, and I forgot the other... yeah, I don't remember. I don't remember who the other member is. But yeah, they're on the show. No, I did not. No, I did not kick anyone's ass. He was getting his ass kicked, and I came out to put a stop to it. So, you're welcome, Vikingo. Joseph Stewart, were you a fan of the Cesar Romero version of the Joker? What was that, from the Adam West Batman show, right? Yes, I was, actually. Duff's Vids is going to try to redeem himself here. What does a burnt pizza, frozen beer, and a pregnant woman have in common? Someone forgot to pull it out. Frozen beer, burnt pizza, and a pregnant woman. Wow. Dr. Scorpio. We used to get Be the Booker on Wednesdays easily. Now it's a struggle to barely get one round. But everything is great. Thanks, TK. LOL. Well, such is the case with Dynamite these days, but what the hell are you going to do? Joseph Stewart, did you know if Tim Burton directed Batman Forever, Michelle Pfeiffer would have returned as Catwoman? Well, it's too bad she didn't, because I loved Michelle Pfeiffer as Catwoman. Michelle Pfeiffer and that tight leather, they knew what they were doing. They knew what they were doing when they cast her in that role. I loved her as Catwoman. And Terrible Dry Chicken. The Rock and Roll Express against Sting and Darby. But the winning team gets to stay at the Playboy Mansion. I wouldn't be surprised if the Rock and Roll Express made a trip or two to the Playboy Mansion back in the day. They would have been a big hit. I don't know that Hugh would have appreciated it, though. Thank you, my friend. And Joseph as well. Joseph, my God. I mean, he dropped so many Batman-related messages and trivia notes tonight. You know, he's probably very disappointed that the next Batman movie is not coming out until 2027. I still have not seen The Batman with Robert Pattinson, so I've got plenty of time, I guess, to catch up on it before the next one comes out. The new Jason Voorhees short, Sweet Revenge, is live. Oh, you know what? I forgot about that. Yeah. Yeah, I got to make a note. Make a note to check that out. I'm a big fan of some of the fan-made films. They're several years old at this point, but there's one in particular that I really, really enjoyed. And the name escapes me, but they have, and it's very well produced too. It looks like very professionally done, but they're like short films that are fan made. And there's some good Friday the 13th ones if you search around on YouTube. Sweet Revenge. I will check that out. In fact, I might do that when we're done here. Did I see the Cross interview on Ariel today? I saw clips from it, yes. We'll talk about that on the Sound Off. I've still not seen the one before Dark Knight. Oh, that was Batman Begins. Yeah, the Dark Knight is my favorite movie of all time. The way that Joseph feels about Batman Forever, that's how I feel about The Dark Knight. And here he is again. I forgot this, Joseph says. Marlon Wayans was supposed to play Robin in Batman Forever if Tim Burton had directed Batman Forever. Boy, Tim Burton had a very different vision for this film, didn't he? Never Hike in the Snow. That might have been the one I was thinking of. That might have been the Friday the 13th movie, the fan-made one I was thinking of. Never Hike in the Snow. That sounds familiar. Thank you for helping me get to 88,000 subscribers tonight. We will be back live here on Friday night for the SmackDown post show, and then, of course, on Sunday for episode 925, I believe we're up to, of the Sound Off. 924 is up if you didn't catch it. There's a lot of news on that show. So thank you for all the positive feedback on that. Please go check that out. And support all of our sponsors. A lot of people are getting some good use out of the ExpressVPN link, especially with these European shows coming up in the next couple of weeks that WWE is going to be doing. There may be some earlier reviews for Raw and SmackDown, or at least Raw. So just be aware of that. I'll keep you guys posted if the schedule changes, which it probably will. And I'll be watching with my trusty VPN if that's the case. But yeah, just take advantage of that if you have not already done so. Duff's Vids dark joke. What's the difference between a priest and a pimple? A pimple waits until you're 12 to come on your face. That was very, very dark. Even the Dark Knight is like, man, that's dark. And disgusting. Anyway, you know what? I kind of regret the fact that we didn't end on the previous Duff's Vids joke. But we will be back on Friday. So until then, be well. Stay safe. You've completely grossed everyone out now. Be well. Stay safe. Have yourselves a good night. And I will see you guys back here on the SmackDown post show on Friday night. Until then, take care, guys.